good, but they still pick up a lot of wins. And so this is my entire point of bringing this up. In their history, they played 76 times. The Jazz own a 48-28 advantage over the Pelicans. And that includes 2 straight wins for the Pels last year, by the way. The Jazz had just gone on like a 5-game winning streak against the Pels, and the Pels broke that around December of 2023. So I'm not going to say that I'm worried about this game tonight necessarily because the Jazz are missing so many players. But history tells you that this could be maybe a little bit more competitive than the Vegas line would suggest, which has the Pelicans as 11.5-point favorites tonight in the Smoothie King Center.
I saw that, I almost fainted. I was like, what?
Once again, it's because the Jazz are sitting pieces. If like you guys were talking about this earlier, the Pelicans aren't going to tank this year. If you want to see a team that's tanking, look at the Utah Jazz. They're just sitting, Lauri Markkanen's injured, but they're sitting like Walker Kessler for rest. They had an off day yesterday. It's not like he's playing a back-to-back. I don't know. So it's a couple pieces that aren't going to be playing for them. They're shorthanded. The Pelicans should be able to pick up an easy win tonight in the Smoothie King Center. But history will tell you the Utah Jazz have given the Pelicans fits in their histories.
That's a wrap on our triple option feature. We shall take a break and return right after this. Stay tuned here on WWL.
At 105.3.
From the Acadian Windows and Hurricane Shutters WWL Traffic Center, I'm
All right.
Cardosi.
We're officially live.
All
right.
Causeway and
It's working for now. We'll find out.
Monte Carey Spillway is looking good to and from the plaza. Causeway traffic is still
I think it's working.
To and from the North
I can't listen to it.
I was going to say, just past St. Bernard
I can.
610, but you're moving better across the highway.
It's actually live, like right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Is there audio coming through though if our mics aren't on?
Well,
or am I just here looking like
people can hear me? Well, that's the case either way. I have my computer unmuted right now so they can hear me as I'm talking. But what I need to do is remember to mute that so that it comes through the PC, so we get the calls and stuff, which it will.
Okay.
But when they don't get the commercials, that cuts off. So, but yeah. So anyone watching, if the audio is coming through weird, please put that in the comments because I can't listen to it. And so
our experiment.
Yeah. So like the show itself, whatever you want to call it, it will kind of be the next hour, but we're just kind of testing early because it's how it's going to be for the next several months on Fridays. We're going to take this last hour and going to turn it into that's the camera over there. Turn it into the podcast itself, the second podcast of the week. So if you have comments, questions, throw them in there and we'll get to them as much as possible. I'm going to go through a rant. We're going to have an interview with was it a host or reporter?
He is like their digital content producer and covers the Lions for their website. Yeah.
Gotcha. Someone with the Lions kind of talk about the Aaron Glenn of it all and that whole situation. So we'll get into it. Thanks everyone for watching. I'm going to hit the mute button because we're going to be coming back here in a minute. And yeah. Coming up on Sunday.
Quarterback slightly to Buffalo's quarterback. I think Baltimore 7 to 10 points. So coming up on Sunday in the game of the week, the game of the year, give me Baltimore.
You are going to miss some nice cookout trips. That is my go-to. Assuming I can get into the Holiday Inn over there, it's tough. A lot of high interest level hotel.
I'm sure it gets booked up though.
There's not that many hotels in Mobile, Alabama. Right. But yeah, there's a horrible place. I always go there because there's a cookout 5 minutes away.
Right.
But the trick is trying to spend $35 a cookout. I could basically order 5 meals.
Nice.
And I always go there and I'm like, I ordered so much, and they're like $9.48. What the? How's that possible? Steve's mic, you won't be able to hear him all that well because the mic is coming through the laptop that's in front of me, but you will hear him when he talks into his mic over there. We're in commercial right now, so the mic itself is local. I'm just keeping it unmuted so that people can hear me.
And this is your wake-up call. If you're paying too much for wireless service,
I guess that is something we could figure out
Consumer Cellular has the same fast, reliable
at some
coverage as
point
the
is
leading carriers
to
for
get
less. And for a limited
a
time,
mic
new
closer to
customers receive
you.
their second month free.
I wonder if I could
Use
change it to the
promo code second
phone.
free by
Let's
January
see.
26th. So why keep spending more than you have to?
So you can control all this just from the laptop.
I sure can.
Freedom or visit
Amazing.
All right, I changed the mic. Steve, talk.
1, 2, check 1, 2.
Can you hear Steve now?
Suddenly,
Let me know
all
if someone
chocolates
watching.
are heart-shaped, and all the PDA.
Because it should be the mic on the phone.
California
It's
Psychics
closer.
give you the guidance you
Yeah, we'll be
need.
coming back from the break soon.
We guarantee if you're reading
Cool.
Yeah.
That's Charlie. In case we always talk about Charlie. You can actually
Oh, you can see him behind you?
Yeah. You can pull up if you want to go to the YouTube channel. You can see the stream.
California Psychics.
I'll use my phone since our computers are.
We got it.
WWL invites you to Guy Fieri's Flavor Town Tailgate at Mardi Gras World on the big day of the game in New Orleans. It's the ultimate game day food festival with over 25 culinary experiences, including diners, drive-ins, and drives, restaurant pop-ups, Guy's custom-created culinary concepts, and local NOLA favorites, plus performances by Diplo, Flavor Flav, and Cowboy Mouth. You can register for a family 4-pack of tickets at wwl.com/contests. Don't miss the Guy Fieri Flavortown Tailgate Sunday, February 9th at Mardi Gras World before the biggest game of the year. And you can hear it on WWL as well. It hasn't really, I guess, sunk in or hasn't felt like, Super Bowl time here yet. I know there's things going on and getting ready for it, but I'm just anticipating, the wild madness that'll be going on in the convention center and all the other events going around the city, and looking forward to just a fun time of football here, and just curious more too of the after parties going on. The year that the Ravens and San Francisco 49ers were here, got to go to an event at the Howling Wolf. Nice. And seeing Ice Cube perform live, and his son was with him too, so it was a really cool experience.
Ice Cube should only perform in cold weather cities. That's my.
Well, it's funny you said that. It was sponsored by Coors Light, and when you walked into the venue, it was snowing in there.
Nice.
So it was very, very cool.
Nice. Well, I'm still in Saints season. I'm never not in Saints season, and we're welcoming in a new audience here. Like we're gonna start doing this for the final hour of our Friday episodes. Is going to be the Inside Black and Gold Power Hour. That's what I'm going to call it. So we're going to get into that next hour. So I'm excited about that. We're going to be taking questions, comments off YouTube. I also want to get into the Saints draft history, which has been yikes. I started digging into this, so we'll get into this in the next hour. But it's so much uglier than I thought it was going to be when I did. It's not pretty. So yeah, let's talk about the Super Bowl, because that's depressing. Because like you look at it and you say how far the Saints are actually away from being a team that you look at halfway through the season and say, like, this is a Super Bowl contender.
No, that's one of the issues we've brought up before, is the fact that the lack of young talent because of the misses on the draft have definitely put a damper and hurt this team. You can't really say they've swung and missed on any big free agents, at least.
No, and I mean, you look at these teams that are Super Bowl contenders, and like, what do they have in common, right? They have young players who are starring. Like, you look at who's leading the Bills in sacks right now? Greg Rousseau. Who could have been on the Saints? Greg Rousseau. He was my mock draft pick that year when they took Peyton Turner. I was like, hey,
the Saints need to put you in the draft room.
And it's like, I thought defensive end was the right target. I actually like the idea of picking a defensive end in that draft was like, yeah, I like it. Now, Peyton Turner, I have no idea who he is, but hey, maybe I just don't know. And then, 4 years later, we still don't know. Peyton Turner, and this is kind of a quick aside, the most Peyton Turner story I can tell you is, so he tore he had a turf toe, like a really bad case of turf toe in week 1 of last year. It kept him out until week 18. During that rehab process from turf toe. He suffered a herniated disc in his back and had to have, and he came back and played in week 18, then had to have back surgery in the offseason heading into this season. So he actually got hurt while rehabbing from another injury and then had to have surgery to repair that. Like, that's just been the if you need a story that encapsulates Peyton Turner's career in the NFL, that's it. Like, even as he's getting healthy, he's somehow getting more unhealthy at the same time. And it's frustrating because, like, I actually think you watch Peyton Turner play and I understand why they drafted him. But that's just been...
You see the vision, right?
Yeah, that's just been the level of bad luck the Saints have had from a health perspective. It starts to be like, this can't possibly be bad luck. You know, and Sean Payton's out there being like, "Hey, you earned that." And how do you not feel like there's a root cause of all this? And every year we're talking about it.
It's been rough, especially this season. It just, you completely wiped out your offense, and I don't know what folks were, expecting throughout the year. It was tough to see when you're starting quarterback, running back, wide receivers.
All the positions,
Swiss Army knife,
all the positions, Taysom Hill,
right? Exactly.
Here's one thing that we'll have to discuss, right? If you cut Derek Carr and you're like, "Hey, I'm taking this full cap hit this year. We're gonna figure it out." You know who could be theoretically an option at quarterback for a team that's just like, "Yeah, let's see what happens."
Hit me. Who you got?
Taysom Hill.
Oh, okay.
Like, why are we ruling that out of hand? Like,
I've seen Sam Darnold. I thought you were going there. I was like, why?
Can he play the way he wants to play at the position you're asking him to do? I don't know. I'm not saying. I'm just saying. Think about it and get back to me.
We're going to take a break, head to the top of the hour news, and come back for our final hour of Sports Talk. And you can stream it live on YouTube. We'll be right back after this, so stay tuned on WWL.
And so yeah, I'm unmuting this mic so that people can hear. It sounds like you're not coming through particularly well, but that's okay. That's like the in between times. Like the actual show itself will be through these mics and it'll sound good.
Yeah, I got you.
So yeah, this is a reasonable setup, so we should be able to do this every week.
I'm glad it wasn't too much of a challenge. It was actually, I was like, bing, bing, bing. I was like, damn, look at this.
Honestly, the only annoying part is I lose access to my phone. But I can text on my laptop.
That's why I'm going to be proactive and shut
someone in the comments on YouTube brought that up with Taysom Hill, and it's like I don't like I probably would put it at like a 5% of like that's something you would consider, but like if you're
out there, right?
If you're just biting the bullet from a cap perspective, and like you are not going to have any good options anyway, would you rather throw money at a Sam Darnold, literally anybody, or would you just say like
Darnold? Like, what are people talking about?
And the thing is, like, you can't trust Taysom Hill to stay healthy playing the way he did anyway. So it's like you're paying him either way. And he's, like if I don't feel comfortable starting as Spencer Rattler, right? And I don't want to pay another quarterback that I'm just going to bench anyway. Like if I'm going to sign someone with the goal of being a bridge to give the job to Spencer Rattler,
I can see that you got the bridge right now.
Why not?
Yeah,
he's under contract. You're paying him. Like
run him into the ground.
Well, you've already had.
That's Bobby's clue.
He's been run into the ground. Bobby got his wish. You ran him into the ground. His leg broke. Now it's like, can you do that again? Or would you just say, hey, why not? Now, I'm not saying that he'd be better than Derek Carr, but in the scenario that the Saints hire a coach and he says, I don't want to do the Derek Carr thing, and you're like, okay, we'll figure it out. I would rather eat the entire cap hit this year, start the quarterback on my roster, and then you're in 2027 free and clear. I just don't think we should just dismiss that out of hand.
With the Carr situation, it's going to be curious to see what the new head coach wants to do.
Yeah, that's all it's going to be. And I would be surprised if the next coach comes in and says, I don't want Derek Carr, because the next coach is going to come in and be like, I'd rather win as many games as I can, as opposed to.
Yeah, I would think you would at least come in and say, let me see what this guy does. His stats aren't awful when the guy's healthy. Unfortunately, since coming to the Saints, he's just dealt with a slew of injuries.
I appreciate that you're talking into the microphone.
Why is that working or
It's
not?
not.
Okay.
But from a vibes perspective, it does make you feel like more official. I believe it's the mic is coming off of that. So I don't know if like the quality of if anyone's just joined and they're like, why does the quality sound like we are recording this off of a single iPhone in the middle of the room?
Well,
it's because during breaks we are not using these mics because you don't need to hear the commercials piped in or whatever. So I just unmuted that so you could hear us. And when we get on, I will mute that again, and it will sound like we have professional audio equipment as a radio station because we do have that. Everyone wave to Charlie. You can see him over my shoulder there. I don't think he did not consent to being on camera, so don't tell him. But he's there. That's Charlie. In case anyone listens to the radio and was like,
I wonder what that guy looks like, right?
He's always busy back there. We sit here and we just like fart around and just do nothing, and he's like constantly working. It never stops.
It's always something, answering phones, uploading audio, chopping audio, giving us info.
Yeah. But no, so I have that whole breakdown. I figure that's what we can do in this segment.
Yeah, it's good.
It's like just dive in as much as possible to that, and then we have the interview in the second segment.
Right.
I don't really know what we want to do in the final one.
I could maybe hit that Glenn audio after.
We could, or we could just take questions.
Yeah, that too. For
There
sure.
aren't any questions in there right now, but I assume over the course of the next hour,
Someone will want to talk to us.
Yeah, I didn't really promo this one all that much because I just wanted to make sure it worked. So,
This is our test run.
yeah.
CBS News special report.
To get a glimpse of our glorious studios.
I'm Chad Robinson with WWL.
Beautiful. Those blinds, man. They're
On Wall Street,
picturesque.
stocks were higher today with the three major averages.
You can see the city at all or not really?
No, I have it kind of cut off
Okay.
over there. I would say pull the blinds up, but as we know, they don't always come back down.
Yeah, I'm not messing with it.
One major threat to the U.S. supply chain has been avoided.
We'll get another tarp or something in here.
Workers from striking across the east and Gulf coasts was reached last week. The agreement has caused shippers to start front-loading products for the U.S. market leading up to President-elect Trump's inauguration in an effort to skirt aggressive trade tariffs. The U.S.
Titans got their general manager, Mike Borganzi.
Would you mind turning that down a little bit?
This, yeah.
Manufactured by General Motors after
It's just a weird vibe. Like it doesn't have to go all the way down. You can leave it on.
Cadillac cars from the years.
Just a kind of a weird vibe because we're not talking. Just like, oh, let's get a news update. Who's getting this?
That's better, huh?
People just happen to. Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if that was coming through or not. I'm not
Okay.
sure it was.
Cowboys completed their interview with Kellen Moore. The Saints have that tomorrow.
I think I think the Cowboys is going to be either Dion or Kellen.
I'm still wondering, does Dion want to come to the NFL?
Yeah, come on. Really? You don't think like Dion is an attention whore of attention whores?
I could see him more with the Raiders than the Cowboys, though.
Dion will go wherever the most eyeballs are.
Well, Dallas and Las Vegas there'll be a lot of eyes on him there.
Right. I mean, sure, Vegas. I'm just saying, like if Jerry Jones calls up Dion, he's like, Dion, I want you as my next head coach. Dion's going to be there on Monday. Like, no question. He's going to be like, thanks, Colorado. I'm gone.
Yeah, I guess. To me, I think it would be tough to leave what he was building in Colorado, but that chance at an NFL opportunity.
It would have been tough to leave what he was building at Jackson State, and he was just like,
later.
I don't buy it. Like I think he's going to be the next coach of the Cowboys because I think that's Jerry Jones is like just. He is addicted to the headlines. Like he's addicted to like,
that's a headline.
Can we get hype? You know? And he's like, oh, we have Mike McCarthy, the most boring person on the planet. He's gonna actually win games. And then Dion's gonna show up and be all exciting and win like 4. And Jerry's gonna be like, I'm okay with it. Coach Prime. I don't know. I can't do a Jerry Jones accent.
It definitely seems like if that scenario does happen, it's perfect for reality TV.
Jerry Jones wants a reality show about his team.
Constantly in the news cycle.
Yeah.
It's all about the star.
Like a permanent Hard Knocks.
That's like overkill with that now.
It's too much. I can't. I can deal with the offseason one the end season might just get bored. Like, I don't need an entire division. I don't need to know what Jameis Winston is doing after, on like Christmas Eve with his family. Like, it's just a lot. Like, I don't need that. Who needs that? Are people that desperate for, like, I guess if you follow those teams, but as someone who's just like, am I going to spend my, like, there's a lot of stuff I want to watch. I only have so many hours in the day.
Well, plus we work football. It's like, do I really want to watch more football?
Yeah, I'd rather watch reruns of The Office. Like, that's how I want to spend my day.
On season 7 of that.
Someone here says Raiders are getting Ben Johnson via Tom Brady's tampering. Is it really tampering? Like, what is it tampering if you? I guess it would be tampering. I don't know. I saw somebody be like, Tom Brady's not going to broadcast next year because he's like he's with the Raiders, and like, I don't think that's true.
I thought there was a statement that came out saying he's
going to be
to
there
Fox.
His whole career, right?
Right.
Yeah. But it will be interesting to see if they ever end up putting him on a Raiders game.
Right. I don't think they will.
Yeah, Raiders aren't going to be good.
And they just wouldn't do that because it would be weird and maybe not, I don't know the proper term for that. Not
conflict of interest.
There you go.
I mean, he's not a judge. He probably would be nicer to his team, but I don't know if
Right, it's not affecting the game really.
If he was like reffing the game,
right? That's different. That's a whole different thing.
I have this take about Bill Vinovich that I feel like would people take offense to, but like, I think Saints fans should want Bill Vinovich to be reffing their games. Like, everyone's like, don't ever let Bill Vinovich ref a Saints game ever again, and they put him on a preseason game this year, just like test the waters, I guess. But like, if I'm a Saints fan, it's like, I want Bill Vinovich on every Saints game, because you have an entire lifetime of makeup calls ahead of you that you're not taking advantage of because he never gets the Saints games.
That preseason game, it wasn't here though, huh?
No, it was in Arizona. And he gave the Saints a very generous overturned touchdown on review.
Okay.
Spencer Rattler's touchdown. I'm just saying, you have the guiltiest person. Like his conscience has to be like heavier than an elephant when it comes to the Saints. Like, he knows he's screwed up. So every close call until the end of time that Bill Vinovich has a say in, Saints get. I genuinely believe that. So I don't know. I think we're going about this the wrong way. We want to start getting calls.
I think
get Bill Vinovich back in the building.
I think he's too worried about even coming back to the Superdome.
You're probably right. This should be road games. Just for his safety, Yeah, you'll start. It's rare to hear refs you suck chants prior to kickoff.
Right.
But I think he would get them. He would flip the coin.
I wonder if he still has that same crew that's still together, because I know.
Oh, I don't know.
Guys.
No, playoff crews are not
regular season.
They kind of amalgamate the top regular season crews.
Gotcha.
And put them together. I don't think, and that's one of the issues when you get to the playoffs. You have a lot of refs that didn't necessarily work together all year.
Right. It's like a team.
Yeah. So. Yeah.
Still one of the most bizarre things that happened in the game that we were witnessed.
I don't know what you're talking about. It happens to me all the time.
What, the no call?
Yeah. Constantly get people running into me, and I'm looking for flags, and nothing happens. I had me at Rouse's the other day. Someone tackled me with a shopping cart, and no one threw the flag. They're like, the bang bang play.
No harm, no foul.
Yeah. I don't see any blood.
We're back here on Sports Talk, but it is a inside black and gold takeover that our mad scientist here, Jeff Nowak, has set up where you can stream it online on YouTube.
Yeah, you can on WWL Sports. I've been calling it the Power Hour. I have to give Cullen credit for that because I enjoy it. So if we've been drinking, we're going to take a shot every minute of this show. So you can't see us at home, but no, we're not doing that.
They can see us at home, though.
Don't. Oh man, they can see us. That's the whole point of this. What am I talking about? But yeah, this final hour is going to be kind of a crossover episode with the podcast. We're going to put it in the podcast feed, and I think this is going to be our plan for the rest of the off season of this final hour of the Friday show. That's kind of just, do with it what you want, is going to be that. And so we're going to just go through some stuff. We're going to have the interview with
Will Burchfield covering the Lions for 97.1 The Ticket in Detroit, helping us break down Lions Commanders, and also get a little insights on what he thinks about defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, who could be a candidate. Well, is a candidate for the head coaching job here in New Orleans, but a bunch of other places too.
Yeah, and that game's going to be a shootout, man. One thing you can say about the Commanders and the Lions, they put up points and they do not stop points. They outscore you. I could see that game being in the 40s on both sides, because that's the type of game we saw the Lions play later in the year. And that's why it's funny. We're like, hey, we want to hire their defensive coordinator of a team that's like losing games. They score 40 points in. But hey, we're going to figure it out. But I want to talk about the draft, and not the Lions draft, not the Commanders draft, because they've been doing okay in those. I'm talking about the Saints drafts. And, so I'm
going to bundle up because it's going to get chilly here.
It's going to get cold. It's going to get cold. And there's not a lot of hot takes. Saints have not drafted well. That's not a hot take at all. But so it can be tough to evaluate a draft, right? In the sense of like, what's a good draft versus what's not a good draft. And you can get caught up in like, oh, you got one star player, but then the rest of the draft wasn't good. So was that a good draft? And so I kind of came up with a rubric for what I perceive a good draft to be. And one of my rules is I need 3 years to evaluate whether a draft qualifies in these categories. So 2023, 2024, it's just too early. Like, I'm trying to establish, did you pull starters out of the draft? Did you pull star players out of the draft? And you really can't tell. Like Isaiah Foskey, everyone's calling him a bust right now. If he shows up next year and is a starter, then suddenly that pick looks better. And I think it's just too early. Like people would have said Trevor Penning is never going to be a starter for the Saints. Started all 17 games this year. I think he had a solid year. We'll see how they do with him from now on. But that changed, right? So in year 3, I feel a lot differently about Trevor than I did after year 2. So to me, a quality draft is at least one player with star potential. So a guy that you could see playing in a Pro Bowl. Like, for example, Chris Olave, I call him one of those players. He hasn't made a Pro Bowl, but he could. He's definitely got that talent, that ceiling. So I want one of those guys out of every draft. If I don't get one, it's not a good draft. Now, obviously, if you have higher picks, that's easier to do. But either way, that's kind of just the baseline. I want to pull at least 3 starters out of every draft class. That includes the star player. And so that's 2 more. And I'm not talking about year 1 starters. I'm talking about over the course of their career, they start games. So even like an Adam Troutman, I call a starter in this metric. And then I want to pull backups, at least 2 special team caliber guys. And
right.
Those are interesting because it's like, hey, if you're a 4th to 7th rounder, that's where I want to be pulling my backups and special teamers. I don't want a first round pick to be a backup or a special teamer. So that number can get kind of weird. But so I want 5 quality players out of every draft class to call it a good draft, not an elite draft, just a good draft. If I get fewer than that, it depends how many of those are starters and how many of those are special teamers. But so I went through each draft dating back to 2016 and did this. And so 2017 through 2022, if I add up the quality, or if I add up my goal totals for those 5 draft classes, I will be hoping to pull in 5 players with star potential over those 5 draft classes, 15 starters. Sounds like a lot, but it's really not when you consider this is 5 draft classes. So that's an entire rookie contract is 4 years. So some of those starters that you pulled out of that first draft wouldn't even be on the roster by the time you get to the second half. So, I mean, that's not that many. I want 15 starters over 5 years. That's averaging 3 a year. And then backup special teams, I'd like to say I have in the range of 10 that are contributors. Now, again, I'd like those backups and special teamers to be coming in day 3. Over those 5 drafts, the reality, what actually happened by my determination, you had 2 players with star potential. So I'm looking for 5. I got 2. You have Eric McCoy and Chris Olave. Those are my 2. No one else over those 5 draft classes I would consider to be star players. Starters, I'm looking for 15. I got 11. Now, keep in mind that 11 is generous because I'm talking about, Marcus Davenport, starter. Adam Troutman, starter. Traquan Smith, starter. So even by those standards, like those starters are not blowing anyone off the page. And I got 4 fewer than I actually wanted in terms of my goals. Keep in mind, these are my goals, but I think they're reasonable. And then backup and special teamers, I ended up with 6. Okay. Not applicable. Like, didn't end up doing anything for you, got cut, didn't play. I have 11 players. 11 of those 27 picks ended up being just non-entities, and like a guy like Rick Nelson included is a 4th round pick that you cut out of camp. 4th round pick. Those are the types of draft picks you were getting. And so for perspective, the 2 draft classes prior to this, 2017 and 2016, before this run of cold winters that seems to never end, you ended up making, 12 total picks. So over 2 drafts, my goals would be 2 star players, 6 starters, 4 special teamers or backups. Over these 2 drafts, I got 4 star potential players. So you're talking about Marshawn Lattimore, Ryan Ramczyk, Alvin Kamara, Michael Thomas. And then 10 starters. Over those 4 drafts, you made 12 picks, you got 10 starters. And these guys are like Trey Hendrickson, Alex Anzalone, Marcus Williams, right? Like quality players that
Hendrickson's a star.
Right. You're like, I call him a starter rather than a star, because if the Saints considered him to be a star,
right here, he was just a starter, right?
They would have paid him. They didn't consider him to be a star, so they let him walk. Now, in fairness to the next 5 drafts, guys like Zach Bond, Caden Ellis, I count among the backups, because much like much like Trey Hendrickson, if you considered them a starter, you probably would have paid them. They'd probably still be here. The reason you let them walk is because you considered them to be backups. Now, you probably were wrong, but so you pulled 10 starters out of 2 drafts. And since that point, from 2018 to 2022, you pulled 11 starters out of 5 drafts. That's why you cannot compete. That is why you are struggling. When players go down, when your frontline players go down, you don't have anyone to fill in for them because you have not drafted quality players. And that's the story of this team. That is why you have gotten to this point. Now, I feel like they've drafted better over the last 2 years. It's still too early, but I think these last 2 drafts, you've gotten 2 star quality players in Brian Brzee and Taliesin Fuaga. That's my goal, is to get at least 1 per draft. I feel like I've gotten them. You've gotten a handful of players that I would call starters, like Kool-Aid McKinstry. I consider him a starter. Trevor Penning, I consider him a starter, right? Alontae Taylor, I consider him a starter. But those are 2021, so you're going back a little farther.
Right.
Either way, it's tough. And until the
Foskey, Kendra Miller, though, picks are obviously up in the air right now.
Yeah, and those are tough because, they haven't played. And so, I kind of look at him as, hey, Zach Bond didn't play, and then he left and he's a star somewhere else. So it's like, I need to see these guys on the field before I can make a determination. Isaiah and Kendra are in 2 different situations, because Isaiah was healthy all year. You just didn't get him on the field. And Kendra Miller was hurt all year, and you would have loved to get him on the field. So when Kendra has played, he's been a good contributor. And when Isaiah has played, I just haven't seen anything. So I don't know. But you could hire whatever coach you want. You could say, hey, we can make the best pick at quarterback possible. If you do not draft better, if you do not find a way to bring in quality players through the draft, you will not turn this thing around. It's the only way to dig yourself out of a salary cap hole, to get back to a point where you are in Super Bowl contention, not just, hey, maybe we can back into the playoffs. Maybe we can win a week NFC South. You got to draft better. And you got to look at those 2016, 2017 drafts. 2016, you only made 5 picks. You hit on 4 of them, right? You're talking about Michael Thomas, David Onyemata, Sheldon Rankins, right? Quality players, Von Bell, even Daniel Lasco. He's kind of he's a non-entity, but I actually think he was on track to be a core special teamer, and then he had a back injury. He made it to the roster, and he was playing special teams when he got hurt. So you got to go back and you got to figure it out. One thing you pointed out that I don't know, if you look back and you say, what changed in this front office that seems to have a direct line to the point where we stopped being able to draft well? Terry Fontenot went to Atlanta, and suddenly it seems like the drafting fell off a cliff.
That definitely seemed like a huge turn there. It's like wondering what happened to the scouting department.
Right. I mean, and it's tough. It's almost too simple to say like that's the answer, but man, the timing there makes a lot of sense.
We are taking a break here on Sports Talk. When we get back, we'll talk to Will Burchfield covering the Lions for the Ticket in Detroit right after this. Stay tuned on WWL.
They say Taysom Hill.
I did. Yeah, I mean, let's talk about it. Like, if you're not willing to start Spencer Rattler, and your options are start the guy you're paying, or go pay somebody, what are you doing?
The headphones kept the audio was going out.
Oh, I wasn't having that problem. I tried those headphones the other day. They didn't work for me.
Oh, they did.
But you could try them.
All right. You're correct, sir.
So this next segment, we're gonna have an interview with a Lions reporter. We're gonna get some information on that matchup and Joe Brady, Aaron Glenn. The final segment, if y'all have questions, comments, and you want us to get to, throw them in the chat. Otherwise, we'll talk about what we want. So if you want us to talk about what you want to talk about, let us know what that is, and we'll get to it.
They want to know your favorite king cake.
I have a unsolicited king cake delivery service at my house this time of year. So I do actually know a lot of king cakes. I've tried 12 of them.
Have you ever had the boudin king cake yet?
I did last year, I want to say. I also had a muffalata king cake.
Okay.
That was gross.
Yeah.
It wasn't gross. It was just it was 3 pounds. I felt heavier.
Was the boudin one good? Because I've been interested to try that.
I can't remember. I remember.
It must have been not that.
It wasn't
not that
bad. I just.
It didn't make that much of an impression. Though.
I mean, I want a king cake. I don't want it was good boudin, but it's not what I'm looking for a king cake. It's not a boudin king cake. The best one I had so far, it was called a cacaron. It's just a gigantic macaron that is a king cake.
Okay.
It was incredible. Tartine also had a really good one. But yeah, so
wow, you definitely are experiencing the king cake realm.
Well, no, so my neighbor is the food writer for the Times-Picayune, and he buys all these king cakes and he parts them out because he buys them to try them. You can't just buy slices; you have to buy the king cake.
He doesn't want to eat the whole king cake.
I can't eat a whole king cake. He's like, I got to get rid of them. So
500 pounds.
So he'll just part them out and then just deliver them around the neighborhood.
That is awesome.
So he'll just text me and be like, "Round 4 incoming. It's on your spork swing," and I'll be like, "Yes." And initially he would text me and my wife. We have a group text, and I told him, "Hey, don't include Claire on these texts because I want to be the arbiter of whether they still exist when she gets home. And if you text her that they're there, then I have to explain why they're."
You ate it all.
Yeah. So sometimes I, take a piece, and it's like, but every now and then I'm like, I'm eating this whole freaking thing. And I just like to know that I have that. Yeah. So he started texting me directly, and it all works out.
So where was this macaroon king cake that you must try?
Oh, I'd have to. It's on my phone.
Okay, got you. That's being currently used.
Yeah, he texts me the information, right? He's like, okay, round 3, it's like this, and this. He even had one box that he wrote arrows. He wrote the 4 names and then pointed to each king cake. It's my favorite time of year.
See, I'm not a fan of this stuff. I like plain old, non-stuffed.
Really? See, I get bored unless it's got something inside.
See, to me, it ends up being overstuffed and it's too much.
Yeah, I don't know. I want dry king cake bums me out. I want something in there. Cream cheese is usually my go-to.
That's
I don't
fine.
need it to be crazy. I don't want jam. I just want something. I want some substance in there.
I forget what year it was, and I won't name the king cake, maker, but it was a praline caramel deal, and you cut it, and it was just it was too much. You had to scoop out the inside actually because it was just overwhelming.
I had that cricket king cake once. Ought have been.
Yeah.
The cricket king cake. It was
plenty of protein.
It was what it was.
We're back here on Sports Talk and our Power Hour for Inside Black and Gold. Happy to welcome in now Will Burchfield, Lions reporter for 97.1 The Ticket. How you doing, Will? You ready for this playoff game on Sunday?
Yeah, no, we're fired up. I'm actually across from Ford Field as we speak, and you can already feel the energy in downtown Detroit beginning to buzz. So, yeah, the city's been waiting for this one for 2 weeks now, and also 65 years. So, yeah, they're pretty fired up.
So y'all were on the road. It was in Tampa last year, correct? No,
No, Lions were home last year for 2 games, the Rams, the Bucks, then went on the road to San Fran.
Gotcha. So what is does it feel different this year? Because you look at the Lions and everything about this season would indicate this should not have gone the way it did, right? Like you get all these injuries, even like a David Montgomery goes down. You think he's lost for the season. Then it's like, oh, wait, no, he's actually got some super growth or healing factor like Wolverine. Just like, actually, I'm back. And I just, it's kind of fascinating because, we watched the season with the Saints and one of the reasons we're like, this couldn't have gone well. They had all these injuries. Well, the Lions were dealing with an insane number of injuries, particularly on the defensive side of the ball, and just kept winning. I mean, 15-2, it's crazy. So is there just this kind of belief factor with that team that even when things don't go well, they just find a way?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's why, for my money, Dan Campbell is worthy of Coach of the Year. And obviously he was someone who was groomed in New Orleans under Sean Payton and still speaks about Payton in glowing terms. And, I probably would have cast my vote for Kevin O'Connell, even entering that season finale, just given the work he had done with Sam Darnold to turn him into what looked like maybe a franchise quarterback from a bust. But for Dan Campbell to take it to the Vikings and O'Connell not once but twice this year with a completely injury-ravaged defense just spoke volumes about the way that he and his coaching staff get their guys prepared to play each week and then get them to buy into the game plan. Dan Campbell has this uncanny ability to forecast the way a game is going to unfold and how his team is going to need to play like quarter by quarter to win that game. And he breaks it down to his players, typically the Friday before each game. And they'll tell you most weeks it goes almost exactly according to his script. And so no matter who they send out there, the players are fully bought into the plan. And then they obviously just play their tails off and then some for not just Campbell, but Aaron Glenn and Ben Johnson and the rest of these coaches here. There is such a trust, mutual trust between the coaches and the players. And I think that's one of the biggest reasons for this 14-2 team. It's crazy. If you had told me in August that they'd be missing half of their defensive starters for most of the season, including Aiden Hutchinson, who was playing at a defensive player of the year level, and Ali McNeil and Alex Anzalone and all these stars, I would have honestly pondered whether 15-2 or 2-15 was more likely. And the fact that they have made it the former is a huge testament to Campbell and his coaches.
Yeah, you brought up the assistant coaches there, the offensive, defensive coordinator with the Lions. Both have been in hot pursuit. Teams have been in hot pursuit of them for head coaching positions. Down here in New Orleans, we are interested, obviously, Aaron Glenn, who was here for some time and has interviewed virtually for the head coaching spot here. Just curious, some of your insights on what he's brought to this Lions team overall. We've gotten a little taste of what he was like in New Orleans, but just what's he been like as the DC in Detroit?
Yeah, his players swear by him. And I'll start by saying this. I have felt really ever since the Saints fired Dennis Allen that Aaron Glenn was destined for New Orleans and destined for that head coaching job. And I know they interviewed him for that vacancy before hiring Dennis Allen. And by all accounts, Aaron Glenn showed really well. It just made more sense at the time, I think, for the team to hire internally. But I really believe that he will be coaching the Saints next season. I know the Jets will have a say in this matter as well. But anytime Aaron Glenn talks about his time in New Orleans, and it's quite often, he speaks about the franchise and the city and even the ownership in really glowing terms. And people around the league might look at the Saints head coaching opening as maybe the least attractive, just given the salary cap situation and the team's like general trajectory for the past 3-4 years. I think Aaron Glenn looks at it and sees it as an awesome opportunity to come back to a team where he spent 5 years as a coach and a year as a player and restore that franchise to what it was when he was part of it. The same thing lured Dan Campbell to Detroit. He once played here, and he saw a job that he could leave a legacy at, and that he could bring pride back into the city and into the fan base. I think Aaron Glenn views the Saints job the same way. Anyway, to answer your question, he has, much like Dan Campbell, a really sharp mind for the game, and then he has the ability to rally his players and to get them to believe in what he's telling them. And, the assistant coach of the year award should go to Aaron Glenn. I can't believe this is still a top 10 scoring defense with all the attrition. And, the ultimate argument for Aaron Glenn's head coaching future was really in week 18 against the Vikings, an offense that had really killed everyone this year, including in some ways the Lions in that first game. And missing, again, half their starters, they come out and they just blitz Sam Darnold into oblivion. And Aaron Glenn may have broken Sam Darnold. I don't know if Sam Darnold will ever be the same. And Aaron Glenn's a big reason why. There was a poll last year, I think it was done by The Athletic, ranking the assistant coaches on opposing teams that players would most want to play for. And Aaron Glenn was far and away the number one ranked coach. I think that says maybe all you need to know about his ability to command a room, to rally a locker room, and to get players to buy into what he's selling.
Jeff Will's got me pumped up.
No, and I think you make a really good point. Like, people will look at the Saints situation and say like, hey, this is a negative situation. But I think it's helpful when you have a guy who was there when everything was going real well, and he understands how that can go well. I guess just to stay on Aaron, is there any story or moment or, anecdote from the last couple of years that you think kind of encapsulates what you're talking about there with Aaron, with the Lions?
Yeah, there was one moment in the first season, I believe, under Dan Campbell, when I forget who they had played, but the defense was ranked like last in the league, and they had just been bulldozed by some team, and they were 0-10-1. And Aaron Glenn on the following Monday took his defense out to the practice field with the physical tape of that prior game, the actual VHS. Maybe it was.
Did they bury it?
They buried it. Yeah, and then he gave his guys each a lock and a key, and he just said, from here on out, we lock the effing gates. And they did play a lot better down the stretch, and I think some of that momentum spilled into the succeeding seasons.
That's actually a Sean Payton thing. I think he learned that from Sean Payton, the whole burying the tape thing.
Yeah. And his players bought into it.
I was just going to go now to the offensive side of the ball, and just curious what you've been hearing about where the likelihood of Ben Johnson is. Could it be with the Las Vegas Raiders?
Yeah, I think it could be. It's amazing because I was talking about Ben Johnson's head coaching future at this time last week, and the Raiders weren't even on the radar. And then Tom Brady gets involved and vouches for Ben Johnson and recruits Ben Johnson to go take the interview. And now the Raiders are said to be enamored with Ben Johnson, which is not surprising. I mean, that guy would present well in a head coaching interview. He does have face of the franchise qualities, and obviously one of the sharpest offensive minds in the game. The one thing about the Raiders that gives me pause is, what kind of roster are you taking over? And I think Ben Johnson, maybe unlike Aaron Glenn, would prefer to land somewhere where he has clear pieces in place, including a quarterback. It's one reason why, to me, Jacksonville is a sneaky dark horse here. I know they're far from the most glamorous NFL franchise, but with Trevor Lawrence there and some other intriguing offensive pieces, and in a market where Ben Johnson won't face the same level of scrutiny as a place like New York. He's also interviewed out there with the Jets. I wonder if that's a better fit for him. But anytime Tom Brady's involved, it's kind of hard to bet against him. So he'll be in town here this weekend. He's calling the game on Fox, Lions Commanders. And no one's really even sure if he's allowed to talk to Ben Johnson on the field before tomorrow's game, like commentator to coach, because he's also a minority owner of the Raiders. So Ben Johnson was asked this week, are you allowed to talk to him? And he was like, above my pay grade. I have no idea. So
yeah, but you should find out.
Work there. But Brady certainly makes the Raiders an option, at least for Ben Johnson.
It's interesting. Another thing that's going to come up this weekend that, I assume most people have watched the Lions. Lions are on primetime all the time, so it's not like they're going to catch anyone by surprise. But, if you flash back to last year against the 49ers, 4th down decisions, everyone's freaking out like, hey, I can't believe he's making all these crazy calls on 4th downs. And I'm like, guys, it's only crazy if you haven't been paying attention, because this is Dan Campbell's whole thing. His nickname is Dan Gamble for a reason. Like, he's making these leverage decisions to give them the best chance to win. If the numbers say go, if he feels like he's going to gain an advantage, he's going to go. Sometimes it feels crazy, like, going on 4th down rather than kicking a field goal to win a game or basically win a game. I think it was the Packers game. I can't recall exactly which one, but it was like, that seems like even for a guy like that seems pretty, pretty bold. But, I just think as we get into this game, it's important to remind people, like, this is probably going to happen. You're probably going to be sitting there at home saying, oh, he's definitely going to kick here. Like, what do you mean he's not going to kick here? This is insane. And I'm just curious, for someone who watches that all the time, did it take a while to adjust to that level of boldness on the 4th down decisions? Like, where do you land on that subject?
Yeah, it did. And it was interesting because the first year he was doing it out of necessity. For an undermanned roster, it was a way to steal possessions, and it was the only way that they could stay in games. Now they do it as a way to win games. I mean, I'm glad you referenced the numbers because he really does trust what the analytics say in most cases. And I think a lot of people view Campbell as an old school traditional coach, and they view those decisions as sort of rash and reckless in the moment. But if you look at the decision to go for it on 4th down or not go for it based on win probability added, that the two teams in the NFL who have made the right decision most often this season are the Lions and the Commanders, who are obviously playing each other tomorrow night. And so this is a game where maybe the punters can just hang out at home and watch on TV. I don't know how often they'll be called into duty, but when Dan Campbell makes those decisions, he's not doing it from this place of I'm going to show you that we're tougher. He's doing it because the Lions, based on the numbers, gain the advantage, and because they have such a strong offensive line that they can more often than not convert 4th and 1, 2, or 3. And so I think that's part of it that's probably ignored by those analytics, is that like the equation, the math is swung in the Lions' favor because of their personnel. He trusts their personnel, and most times the players come through.
Yeah, and I'm sure they spent a lot of time working on those 4th down plays, so they probably run them as well as anybody as well at the same time, man.
The Lions, I know, a steep favorite in this game, 9.5 points. For you, what are the keys in this matchup against the Commanders team that, man, oh man, they're dangerous too with Jaden Daniels under center?
Yeah, definitely. It's a huge number for a divisional weekend playoff game. I think the key here for the Lions is basically, can they run it the way they've run it most of the season while also getting David Montgomery back? The Commanders' run defense has been pretty weak all season long. I know it's been maybe a little better of late, but I think the Lions can control the game in that regard. And then defensively, it's just limiting Jaden Daniels when he's out of the pocket. I was talking about this earlier today. Like when the Lions played the Bills and Josh Allen killed him anytime he got out of the pocket, not by scrambling, but by making those off-script throws downfield when receivers extend their routes and the secondary loses contain and he finds a guy for a 40 or 45-yard bomb. To me, and even Alex Anzalone said this week, like he's going to escape the pocket. He's going to make some plays with his legs, but when he's out of the pocket, we have to plaster in the secondary. We have to find our guys, eliminate those big plays in the air. And I think the Lions on the whole will be able to do that. And I think just with their offensive firepower that they'll pull away late in this game. I actually think they will end up covering. I think it's a high scoring back and forth game for most of it, but I think a late touchdown or a couple late drives, fourth quarter by the Lions swing this game and this spread in their favor.
Want to appreciate the time, Will. Have a great time at the game, and hopefully be seeing you maybe in New Orleans for the big game.
Yeah, I would love nothing more, man. I came down there from Mardi Gras in my college days and discovered they sold both big-ass beers and huge-ass beers.
Yeah, they're different. They're different. Yeah.
I'm trying to come back down there to get me some of those.
Awesome stuff, Will. Appreciate your time, man, and have a great game.
All right, you guys too. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Will.
Will Burchfield covering the Lions for 97.1 The Ticket in Detroit. We're going to take a break here on Sports Talk and get back to your text and calls right after this on WWL.
He was good. He was good.
Yeah. That was some gold audio for on Aaron Glenn.
I bet, yeah.
I love, like I said, he was talking. I was like, man, he's getting me amped up about the hire.
Yeah. I like when he says, hey, he's destined to be the next Saints head coach. I hope he's right. I just think, it's funny. Like, you don't want to make a decision based on like who the fans will get excited about. But after so many years of everyone being upset all the time about every decision, and every decision is wrong, and that quarterback sucks, and the head coach sucks, and the offense coordinator sucks, and blah blah blah. It'll just be nice if the Saints can hire someone that like is above that, Like, and that won't be the case if they hire McCarthy. Every time they lose, everyone will freak out. It won't be the case if they hire Riz. Everybody will be like, it's the same. Like, if they hire Aaron Glenn, people get excited. And I think the same will be true about Joe Brady, but I have a lot more concerns about Joe Brady.
I'm right there with you.
Especially like what that guy said, it was like he just doesn't seem like he's ready to be a head coach. And that's what I'm worried about. It's like, yeah, he can be this offensive wonder kid.
And does he have that gravitas about him, that personality to be the head coach?
Exactly. And I just don't know. I don't know. But I do know that Aaron can do that. Like whether the defensive scheming part of it, like hire good assistants, and I don't care. Like, I think he's ready to be a head coach. So yeah, that's why he's my top pick.
I'm biased towards Glenn. I don't know if I told you the story.
You told me like 6 months.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. About the food?
Yeah, exactly. So ever since then, I was like, Glenn's okay in my court.
No, I appreciate it. Once I figured out that food going out of the stadium was fair game, and my road trip life changed. Because like the food on the plane on the way back is nice, don't get me wrong, but it's not great. It's good.
No, and it's not the local food at the stadium.
Sometimes they'll have local food on the planes on the way back, but it's like, you got to take it from the restaurant, load it on a plane. Like, it's probably been sitting there for 3 or 4 hours. But like the food coming out of the stadium is like meat.
Right, I agree totally. Yeah. I'd rather have that as well.
They got choices. And, I'll still eat the food on the plane. I'll have 2 full meals in the span of an hour and a half. But I always get jealous. I see the guys with the bags on the bus. And I'm like,
oh, right, yeah.
And I saw Haas with one. And I was like, wait, we can take that. Okay, doing it. That's why I gain like 8 pounds every like. A short break.
Back here on Sports Talk, also known as our Power Hour edition of Inside Black and Gold, Jeff and I's podcast that we put out weekly. And want to get into our Oakland Heart Jewelers talk in text line. We've got George in Monroe. Jeff was talking about the Saints draft, and George wants to chime in. What you got for us, George?
Yeah, good evening to you fellas. But look, I know people have been talking about how the Saints have been missing out on the draft picks. But what I don't understand, I don't see it that way. I mean, look at the players, whether it be a free agent or draft pick, that they let just walk, give away for nothing, didn't want to pay the money. I mean, you got Marcus Williams, you got Henderson, you got, the linebacker, Caden Ellis, you got Zach Bond from last year. I mean, just about every team, it seems like I watch the Saints play. They got like Zach Bond. He leads the Eagles in tackles this year.
Been a beast.
Caden Ellis, he led Atlanta in tackles this year, and they have let some really good players lead there. Now, I know you can't pay everybody, but what is the deal when you draft a player and you want to develop that player, and you get that guy like Zach Bond? They finally figured out what a good player he was the last year. At the end of the last year, he was with the Saints. and they let him go to Philadelphia. Now, I don't know. Maybe they couldn't afford him, but, hey, if you can't afford to keep a player, why? I mean, to me, it doesn't matter. I know people look at things different, but to me, I don't care if he's a draft pick or a free agent. If you draft a number 1 draft pick and say a number 4, and the number 4 draft pick can outplay the number 1 draft pick at the same position, why is people saying, well, this guy's got to work out, and that's like, just like Derek Carr now. Look what Denver done with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Well,
let's before we change the subject, I do want to talk about the draft, and I think you make some good points with Zach Bond, and the issue with Zach Bond is, okay, who's he playing over, right? And I think there's a couple things that have happened, and you mentioned Trey Hendrickson, guys, Marcus Williams, so you're going back to 2017, and that's really the last great draft the Saints have had. And yeah, they did let a few of those guys walk, but I do think you hit on an important point, which is the player evaluation and the alignment between, hey, we drafted this guy, we think he's going to be a good player. Well, you got to play him, And the issue I think the Saints ran into is Demario Davis played forever, and are you going to bench Demario Davis to put Zach Bond on the field? Because that's probably what you would have had to do to get Zach Bond on the field. Now, you mentioned, could you not afford Zach Bond? The Saints could afford Zach Bond. Mickey Loomis said they tried to re-sign Zach Bond. The issue was Zach Bond wanted to play, and the Saints could not promise him playing time because Dennis Allen wasn't going to play him over Demario Davis. So he went to the Eagles, a system that fit him a little better. And, they run a 3-4, kind of that hybrid scheme, so he can play that inside linebacker spot next to Nakobe Dean, and he did, and he's starred in that role, doing what he kind of felt like he could have done all along, and the Saints just couldn't find a spot for him. What I'll say is, yes, you do need to keep the players you draft that are quality players, and the misevaluations are a problem, but they become even more problematic when, for example, Trey Hendrickson, you let him walk for a few reasons, one of them being you went all in on Marcus Davenport, right? So,
and Trey was mired with injuries except for his final season here.
Sure, but my point is, like, okay, are you going to break the bank to keep Trey Hendrickson around when you just traded up into the first round to go get Marcus Davenport? Now you're going to play Marcus Davenport. So you already have Cam Jordan, you have these guys. So it becomes, okay, when you're misevaluating in the draft, you are going to make decisions based on, hey, we invested in this guy, and that's where you end up in the situation you have where, yeah, you watch the Bengals and it's like, man, Trey Hendrickson's leading the league in sacks. Wish we had him. Zach Bond's leading the league in tackles. Wish we had him. Caden Ellis is, quality player as well. You wish you had him, but you're not paying $27 million to your backup linebacker. And so I think that's where when people complain about the roster getting older, that's where it becomes an issue. Like, okay, we had Zach Bond. We couldn't play him because we're dedicated to Demario Davis playing until he's 90. So Zach Bond goes and stars for the Eagles, and that's frustrating. But at the same time, you got to continue to stock that deck with quality young players on rookie deals because you're not going to fix the salary cap without that. And I would love to move on from Derek Carr in the sense of like, hey, would be nice to reset from the salary cap perspective. The problem is, it's going to take 2 to 3 years if you do that this year and move on from him and come back. And I don't think you have the players to replace him. So, no, I agree with a lot of things you said, but I do think that it is important to draft better to get back to where you need to go. I don't think you can get there through free agency. I don't think you can get there through, just holding on to these guys for forever and hoping that the roster around them, and I'm talking about Cam Jordan, Tyrann Mathieu, Demario Davis, Taysom Hill, will get back to the point where you're a Super Bowl contender. You have to bring in players through the draft.
Yeah, I understand the frustration of when you see these guys leaving and thriving in other places. I thought that immediately with a guy like a Caden Ellis, just because he was a late round pick. He was finally developing, and the year he really did break out. The next season he left for Atlanta, but that's because you also had the Ryan Nielsen went over there to become the defensive coordinator in the ATL.
I just think, guys want to play, right? And like, you're not going to be able to re-sign Zach Bond and say, yeah, you're going to be a special teamer. Like, no, he wants to go play. He didn't sign a big contract with the Eagles. Like, right. His contract with the Eagles was not extensive. Like it was manageable. They just could not.
Yeah, the vision here was never
made sense. It was like
for Bourne, right?
It was a pick that felt like, hey, we like this guy, and then the head coach was just like, I don't think it's going to work, and there was never any commitment to it working, and it didn't work.
Well, I guess it was hard for him to get onto the field too when you got a guy like Mario Davis and Pete Werner around.
Yes, well, and that was the other problem is they went and drafted Pete Werner the next draft. I was like, all right, I guess we're never playing this guy.
The music's playing us out, so we'll take a break, come back with more sports talk and Inside Black and Gold podcast right after this on WWL.
Yeah, it's like I was just waiting for him to finish his point, but then it was once it's like you go from that to like Derek Carr. I'm like, what are you
I was like, yeah, right.
You're talking about the draft. I thought you were talking about the draft.
Like the ramble. It was like, what is this, Bobby?
Well, I've never heard. He's a different caller than we usually hear from. So I don't want to cut off people because like I want them to feel like
right. It wasn't like Jimmy or something.
Yeah, like if it was Jimmy, I'd be like, shut the fuck up. Like I'm done.
Or James.
Yeah. Whereas like I'd like him to call back. I don't. I think he made some good points. Like I appreciated the content. But at a certain point, it's like, no, this is not your show. This is our show.
Is Marcus Williams even doing well for Baltimore?
Not anymore. No, he.
I know dealt with some injuries too.
I think they benched him this year. I haven't really been paying that close attention, but he was good the first year, and he got a pretty significant injury. And I don't know if he ever got back to that form.
Right.
But no, we never look past that. We never look like no one ever goes and reassesses like actually was it a good decision to not pay him? Because I actually think it probably was.
Williams?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree too. Plus, we've talked about this before. Saints don't pay safeties.
Yeah. Well, Von Bell, someone said Von Bell was benched too. Yeah, but Von Bell, he's earlier, right? Like he was the Malcolm Jenkins. They let go of Von and they brought in Malcolm Jenkins, and so Marcus Williams was Tyron. So that was like 3 years. So like he's not playing now, but he was playing a key role for the Bengals when they went to the Super Bowl. So like you're not looking at this last couple of years. You're looking at the 3 years following them letting him go, and he was playing really well for the Bengals over that period of time. But all that said, I don't think that that Malcolm Jenkins was a downgrade.
Definitely not.
Like I think Malcolm was really good when he was here. He had a rough start, but he picked it up. So I don't know. Like Von Bell was tough. I think he got overpaid a little bit because he had like 7 fumble recoveries in that last year with the Saints. Like it was crazy. It was like they were just like I had magnets on his hands. But yeah, and I mean like safeties are tough too because I just think the Saints, from a philosophical perspective, do not want to pay safeties. And the free they just let him go. They let Kenny Vaccaro go. Like they just.
Yeah, I looked up real quick with Marcus Williams. The 3 years he's been there, first year 10 games, and the next 2 were 11 games.
Yeah, and the first year I think he like had a really nasty injury, I can't recall what it was, but it was like broken bone.
He did have in 2022, his first year there, he did have 4 picks though.
Yeah, well, he was leading the league in interceptions. Then he got this crazy injury. Yeah, it was like back-to-back seasons. It was like Marcus Williams was leading the league in interceptions, and then C.J. Gardner-Johnson was leading the league in interceptions.
CJ was a contract deal because he wanted top dollar, and the Saints were definitely willing to dish that out for him.
CJ was a little bit of everything,
and we've seen him bounce around since with the after the Saints too. So
CJ's a head case, like CJ was like, we can't sustain this, and we're not paying him at the top of the safety market.
That to me too, yeah. CJ was definitely a Sean guy.
CJ, well, the thing is, CJ, you would have liked to just have him play out his contract and maybe a franchise, right? But
he wasn't having that.
No way that was going to happen. He was going to tear the rule.
And he made it vocally known.
Back here on Sports Talk, a.k.a. our Power Hour for Inside Black and Gold podcast. Jeff, checking out the Oakland Heart Jewelers talking text line. 5887 saying, did you just really say Taysom Hill? Jesus, no, referring to the fact that you said, hey, if you're going to go through this rebuild, maybe you just stick Taysom at quarterback.
I mean, it's because he's Mormon. Is that why? No. I don't know, man. I'm just saying if you move, I'm not saying like all things being equal, Taysom Hill is your best chance at quarterback. I'm saying if the Saints go the route, they hire a head coach, he's like, I want to clean up the cap, I want to take the hits, I want to do what the Bucs did, and just eat it all, eat as much as possible, and then go the cheapest route available that we could probably win some games or at least be competitive at. Like, I don't want to go with a rookie who doesn't have a future. I want to go with a guy I can trust who's started games at the NFL level, won games at the NFL level. And I just think, hey, you're paying him. He's on the roster. So if the options are you take a massive cap hit from Derek Carr, you don't feel comfortable throwing Spencer Rattler to the Wolves, and you have Taysom Hill under contract, would you rather go pay Sam Darnold? Would you rather go pay some of these cast-offs? You bring Andy Dalton back? Like, I don't know. I'm just saying, if you end up in that scenario, why not Taysom Hill? Tell me, because you're not playing. I don't know how much longer you can play Taysom Hill like the Taysom Hill you played this Taysom Hill year. This fighting Taysom Hill offense. You just can't stay healthy that way. So if you want to get some value out of that contract, I think that's maybe the only way you can do it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying
there could be a combination of like a Taysom Hill and Spencer Rattler combo there.
Yeah, why not? Like, I want to get something out of Taysom. So I don't know. Let's see what we can do.
That's a wrap on our show today, folks. Thanks for tuning in, and everybody on YouTube as well that has been chiming in and listening. Gentlemen, what's your plan for this weekend? Jeff, anything good you got going on?
I'm going to watch a lot of football.
Yeah, that's pretty much
order some wings.
What it is for me too, as well.
Yeah.
Pelicans tonight, action starting 7:00 on 8:70 a.m. Pre-game coverage has been going on. I'll be rolling it right into that soon. Hopefully they can pull out another victory, get their first 3-game win streak of the season. Thanks again for tuning in. For Jeff Nowak, Charlie Long, I'm Steve Geller. Have a great night, everyone, and happy Friday. Enjoy the weekend. Talk to you on Monday. Who dat?
Who dat?
That went by really quick, actually, that hour.
It did. Time flies when you're busy.
Or something.
Get this out of my way. I'm not even working. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff. Thanks, everyone, for watching, for joining in. This is what we'll continue to do throughout the offseason. We'll promo it a lot more. We'll have more plans for it, but I think this went well. This was a good test run. And so we'll go from here. Thanks, everyone, for listening. As always, Jeff Nowak, Steve Geller. It's Charlie Long back there. You can see him. He's kind of puttering around, doing all the work that we choose not to do. And, going to cut this off now. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Later, Saints fans.
And peace out.
Sorry, I forgot about the podcast. I was like, they're done. I'll just walk right in there.